Well, it's Roger the Horace. Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. I've had a good week.
He's guzzling 7-Up. That's what he's doing.
I'm on the pop, yeah. I've had a good week, yeah. Really fired up. I was a little bit glum on the last one, but
Why were you glum? Because of your boiler?
I don't know. Oh, my boiler, yeah. Of course, yeah. Well, our boiler man, Darren, came round and repaired it. So he's given me a little bit of breathing room for another couple of weeks, getting a few more quotes for it, because the quotes I've had are quite different.
Hang on a minute. So you massively need a new boiler, and you've got some bloke to come round just to keep it going for a little bit, like, oh my God, my boiler's gone wrong. I need some money. Have you got any money? Have I got money? Has she got any money? Has he got any money? Is there 10p down the back of the sofa? I've got any money. I need some money. I'm going to get my boiler fit. I want any money. Someone get money. Sorry, I can't help it. Are you going to try and stick with your old cretinous boiler?
No, we're getting a new boiler. But with all this, I've had to have a new sofa as well. So I've had to make that this morning. So I've had a right old time today.
What's wrong with your sofa? Have you had one too many voluminous backsides on it over the years?
One of the springs in it has gone bang and sticking out like a cartoon, and I've repaired it and it's not quite the same, and it's just a bit tired. So we thought we'd have a new one. So we've treated ourselves to a new one, IKEA one.
Nice.
Other sofas are available. But IKEA sofas are in stock. You get it in 3 days and you can wash all the covers. So that's why we've gone for an IKEA one. And it's super comfortable, much more comfortable than our old one.
Yeah, but you won't be able to sell your old one because it's been infested with rich egg. You better put a government health warning on your Facebook marketplace, mate. Welcome to Backstage Pass, the podcast which pulls back the curtain on the music industry with banter, comedy, and essentially two blokes having a laugh. With myself, James Maverick, and my good friend, Rob Newson, otherwise known as Roger the Horace. If memory serves, you told me that you got a quote from a plumber with a hilarious name. What was his name?
Oh, yeah. Phil Pripto. Yeah, I've never...
Was that his real name?
Yeah, I've got a bit of paper with it on. He sent me a letterhead thing. Yeah, Phil Pripto. Yeah, he's a plumber. Prictoe. Pripto. 2 parts of the human body together in a surname. I've never ever seen that surname on anyone ever since.
That is quite hilarious.
Or up until now. So yeah, Mr. Pripto.
Well, I'm glad you're getting your boiler fixed anyway, and it's not exploded on you. So how are you? What have you been up to?
I went up to London to a serial killer exhibition, which was great fun. I went to see the comedian Bill Bailey.
Yeah, but he's shaved his mullet off now, hasn't he?
He has shaved off his mullet, but
was he good though?
Yeah, he's interesting to watch as a comedian because he obviously intersperses his comedy with his own songs.
He is a brilliant musician though, isn't he? Like, legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does some jokey stuff on the keyboard and the piano and the guitar. He does songs about supermarket conveyor belts, and he did some really good stuff. He's one bit he did that I know you would have loved is he gave all the audience these plastic Bluetooth balls.
Right.
And when you hit them or bounce them or throw them against anything, it makes the noise of an instrument. So he had all of the balls tuned to a single drum.
Wow.
In the Phil Collins drum fill in the air tonight.
That's brilliant. What happened?
Well, he gave everyone in the front row one of the balls going along, and then obviously he then wanted them to do the fill, so they had a practice, and they did it. It was one bloke that wasn't very good at it, but but they did it. And then he did his own version of In the Air Tonight on his keyboard, just the bit around the fill, with some slightly different lyrics, which was really funny, talking about hair and stuff, which was really, really amusing. And then when they got to the fill, of course, the front row did the drum fill and got a standing ovation. It was really good.
Did the front row nail it, or did they stack it?
Yeah, they nailed it, and they actually sampled the that they had on their ball from the drum fill. So it wasn't like just a drum; it was the actual drum noise from the Phil Collins song. It was very well thought out, and it was really good, and it was really funny.
That does sound absolutely epic.
So that was really good. And then after that, we went for a meal and went on the tube for a little while, and I rode around on the tube. And when I was on the tube, every time I go on the tube and go through Baker Street, I can't go through Baker Street without thinking of one of my favourite tunes of all time, which is I should have said something else then, shouldn't I? But no, Baker Street by the late and very great Gerry Rafferty.
Yeah.
And that always makes me think of when I was at school. Before I got lumbered with the drum kit, because I know you didn't learn to play drums at school, did you? Wasn't it after school, or did you play at school?
I did have lessons at school, but I didn't do them for very long. I did them for about a year, but all I wanted to do was be Robert Fuso from Skid Row. And in in my drum lessons at school,
who didn't? Yeah,
it was all reading music and doing your forms, your paradiddles, and your mum and dadders and all that. And that was all right. It gave me a good grounding. But they weren't taught by the school. This is a funny story actually. They were taught by this old geezer that used to come into the school. He was like a freelance guy. His name was Eric Burville. His name was, but I used to call him Bovril Burville. Because every time you opened the door to the drum room, it reeked of Bovril, because that's all he ever drank. And he was really sweet old bloke. He must have been in his 70s. He was quite ancient, and he was absolutely wicked on the drums. He was a jazz drummer. He'd get me to like play some stuff, and if I did a good fill or something that he thought was quite cool, he'd throw a Murray mint, and it would always land on the floor tom. He'd reward you with Murray mint. Mate, in the Muzzer Club, you knew you'd done a good drum lesson if suddenly a Murray mint just went dong 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 on the tom tom, because he'd flick it with his thumb.
I haven't even seen him. What happened to Murray mints? I haven't seen a Bovril Burville. That's
Bovril
brilliant.
Burville.
Like
He was a lovely guy. He was. Anyway, I digress. Tell me about Gerry Rafferty.
I haven't seen a Murray mint for about. I can't remember the last time I even saw one. They're still a thing. I don't even know if they're a thing.
Oh yeah.
Please, someone let us know if you can still get Murray mints. I haven't seen them anywhere.
I've just said you can. Can you not hear me?
Sorry. No, I can hear you. I was ignoring you because I was talking over the top of you. Sorry. You can get Murray mints then. Right, fine.
But mate, Gerry Rafferty, Baker Street.
I'm sorry, I digress. Gerry Rafferty, Baker Street, possibly the most definitely in the top 5 saxophone riffs in songs of all time. Now, here's a story. When I was at school and I was playing the drums, I saw a film called St. Elmo's Fire.
Hang on a minute. You played drums at school?
Yeah, I had drum lessons at school, yeah. 100%, yeah. I learned traditional styles, so I had the stick across my hand.
Trad grip?
Yeah, like the old jazz drum.
Well, why did I not know that you used to have drum lessons? I didn't know that about you.
I definitely did. I had drum lessons at school.
And to keep time, did you go, got any money, got any money, got any money, got any money, got any money? No? So you did paradiddles, mum and dadders, and got any money, got any money, got any money.
I used to do paradiddles. I used to sit there and do them because that was how you used to learn. Left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right. And then you keep doing it.
How long did you have drum lessons for then?
Oh, from when I got my first kit when I was about 10. And then I had lessons till I was about 3 or 4 years.
Mate, this is a complete revelation to me. I literally didn't know that you used to play the drum. Why did I not know that?
So my dad bought me a little drum set, which was a bass drum, snare, and a tom and a hi-hat, and I used to play that in the shed.
And did you have your grandma's Zilbell as well at the end, stuck on with blue
I didn't have my nan's ashtray turned upside down going, like you have, yeah, with that blinking, sounds like a nail gun going into a blinking air vent. No, I didn't have that.
You should have.
So I had that, and then I had lessons. So I used to go. I'm so sorry, pardon me. I used to go on a Saturday morning down to Wolsey Road in Portslade, and I used to have lessons by a guy called Mike Dolbear, who's now like a huge name in the drum world.
Wow!
And he used to have a massive. This would have been back in, when would this have been? Probably about 1984, 1985. He had a massive mullet like Limahl.
Oh wow, that's an uber mullet.
Actually, I think he was more Pat Sharp. He had a much longer back than Limahl did, because Limahl's was on his shoulders. He had a massive bouffant mullet, and he used to give me drum lessons in the shed. And he had like a makeshift lean-to thing out the back of his garden. There's no filth involved in this. It was perfectly above board, and I had a notation book, and he used to sit and make.
What do you mean filth? I wasn't assuming that this story was going to end up being a pedo drum instructor.
These days, you hear people, he took you into a shed, and before you know it.
What? He's a wrong un just because he's got a mar like creme de moulin, like Limal.
The lights have all gone out. You'll have to do this in the dark. No, I won't. No, thank you. Grab hold of this. It's a drumstick. No, it doesn't feel like a drumstick. No, it was none of that. I played. He had a practice kit set up in his shed that was all pads, like little. It wasn't electric. It was just the literal pads. So it used to make like an electric kit with no noise. So I used to play in there for 20 minutes every Saturday, and I'd go down. I think it was about 80p, and I used to go down there and have that. And then he went off to work on cruise ships, and this is all true. He's got a website, so I've looked it up. He's ironically now, he's got absolutely no hair. He looks like a baked bean. He's completely bald. Anyway, so he's now quite famous in the drum world.
Amazing.
Bet he'll remember it. And he forwarded me on to his protege, who was his best student, who was a guy called Lee Salvage, and he then gave me lessons for the best part of a year. Then I saw St Elmo's Fire, and I wanted to play the saxophone. If you've ever seen St Elmo's Fire, which is a film with...
Yeah, of course I've seen St Elmo's Fire, with Rob Lowe on the stage, all Vaselined up, drenched in sweat, giving it the large on the saxophone in front of all the birds, giving them all wet knickers.
That's right. In a vest, and I thought, right, I'm going to have a bit of that.
So did you learn saxophone as well then?
I was in the music class at school, so you would ask if they had an instrument, because the school would lend instruments to students so they could learn to play them, because obviously the instruments were quite expensive, and parents didn't want to invest in instruments for you to play for two weeks and then go, I don't want to play that anymore, like most people did. So I asked the school if they had a saxophone. No, they didn't have a saxophone. Someone else was already playing the trumpet, and I didn't really want to play the trumpet. So they gave me the next best thing that they had. And what do you think that was?
Oh, not what, like clarinet or something?
It was a bassoon.
Oh, my God. So did you actually go and learn the bassoon?
I had a go, yeah, because I wanted to play something that I could. The thing is, if you've ever held a bassoon, it's a stupid word anyway, isn't it?
That's really made me laugh, that you saw St Elmo's Fire watching Rob Lowe and you thought, I'll get all Vaselined up and get all sweaty, leap on a stage and do loads of saxophone solos and get loads of birds, and they gave you a fucking bassoon. Can you imagine Roger the Horace on stage with your top off, put your mum roll on like at Mr. Swift's, go out with a bassoon and see if you can pull down at the local club? I'm sorry, I can't get that image out of my head. I'm crying here.
Yeah.
Oh, you poor sod. That's actually really harsh though when you were a kid.
Do you know what? A bassoon doesn't even have a good noise either. It parps. So yeah.
Bit like that.
It's not even as good as that noise. It sort of parps. It's more sort of. It does actually parp. It's quite hard to get a note out of.
Yeah.
And it's like holding a. It's like holding a drain pipe because it's huge. It's about 4 foot long.
Yeah, they're massive. So did you stick with it for a while, or what happened?
Oh, I remember I only had about 2 things at home that I could sit on when it wasn't touching the floor, because you used to have to. You had to, if you watch people play in orchestras, which I have to say I don't anymore. They normally have it at an angle because it's quite long and therefore you can't really do anything with it. You have a strap around your neck that goes onto it.
Yeah, and if you're quite short, it drags on the floor.
Yeah, and it weighs about half a ton. And it's not a sexy instrument, man. Saxophones are sexy, and you know that's some awesome stuff there.
Yeah, man.
But bassoons are not sexy at all. It's horrendous. It sounds like something you'd be floundering around in the deep end of a swimming pool, doesn't it? A blinking bassoon. It's not a good word, let alone anything else.
So I am aware. I didn't know that you had bassoon lessons. Sorry, that's still making me laugh.
I remember sitting at home on a stool trying to get notes out of it and parping away. And I think it's also quite loud. And I think my mum and dad were like, "You're not playing that in here."
Well, you were piping away. You were piping away with a rich egg, and you were also playing the bassoon.
I was piping away at both ends. It was a.
So I wasn't aware that you had both drums and bassoon lessons, but I am aware of your love for the saxophone and music, and particularly 80s music with saxophone stuff. Would I be correct in assuming that, Roger the Horace?
I do love an 80s saxophone banger. There's no doubt about it.
Well, maybe that should bring us to our next feature then.
Roger the Horace's Absolute 80s Bangers.
So, Horace, just before we dive into Roger the Horace's Absolute 80s Bangers, is it particularly wise to be munching on a bag of knickknacks while you're sitting in front of a dynamic microphone recording a podcast, you lemon?
Probably not, but it was only a small one. A bit like Nick Nack himself. Never mind.
Yeah, you only did that to sneak in that bloody prick actor, that Nick Nack from the last episode.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah, he's...
Give us your choices then. What have you got?
He's gone. Right, number 3, I'm going in. Saxophone, 80s saxophone songs. Number 3, The Heat Is On by Glenn Frey.
Oh.
Which...
Who? You mean Glenn Frey?
Right. Argument settler. It's Glenn Frey, but it's written Glenn Frey. I've been calling him Glenn Frey my entire life.
I thought it was Glenn Frey.
Somebody... Hang on. I'm so sorry. Somebody said the other week, it's Glenn Frey, and I was like, I think Ken Bruce said it on the television.
All right.
I'm so sorry, and I said, I'm not having that. It's Glenn Frey. So I looked it up, and the pronunciation is Fry, despite it being written Frey. Anyway, an 80s absolute banger,
mate. Absolute banger.
Going down the street in a car, putting that on in the summer, and winding down the windows. Heat Is On, amazing tune, and from Beverly Hills Cop.
Agreed. It's an absolute banger, that was sort of a tune of my childhood, that, because I love Beverly Hills Cop. And I actually sat my son, Isaac, down in front of that the other day, and it's become one of his favourite films he's ever seen, because it is brilliant. It's such an amazing film, that. Do you know what? I only found this out the other day. Eddie Murphy was 21 when he made that, and he freaking owns that movie, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The way he blags his way out of situations and that.
I remember there being an almighty amount of swearing in it for that sort of film when it came out, because that was what made it a 15, was all the language.
I think there's 72 F words in it, which was a record at the time it came out. I've got that.
When the chief comes in the locker room and starts on him, that's absolutely hilarious.
He goes absolutely ballistic. But you're right, and it's in the, isn't Glenn Frey's Heat Is On, apparently. Isn't that in the opening when Eddie Murphy's in the back of the truck with all the boxes of cigarettes?
The opening of the film, I looked that up too the other week, is when he's on the back of that truck, is Neutron Dance by Pointer Sisters. And then The Heat Is On is when he first goes to Beverly Hills, when he's driving down the street and seeing all the people in all the big jackets and all the...
And he's going, look at that bloke with his crap leather jacket, yeah.
Great movie, great song. Yeah, so I'm having that as my 3. Number 2, do you want number 2?
Yeah, go on.
I have thought long and hard about these, and I have relayed that these songs don't just have like a saxophone solo, pretty much. They have a saxophone. Without the saxophone, it wouldn't be as good a song. Let's just say that.
I want to chime in here. Actually, I've got more to say about The Heat Is On. I think that 80s saxophone banger stands out probably more than the majority of saxophone bangers, because it's a really interesting tune. If you think about it, normally an 80s pop song, it's not the primary driver to the song. It's like you know, in the solo or some little separate part that sort of adds some flavour to the song. But The Heat Is On by Glenn Frey, the main riff is the saxophone. It's literally a saxophone driving riff. And I always thought that was really cool and quite unusual.
100%. Yeah, that's why I've tried to stay away from songs that have just got a saxophone solo in them.
Good man.
There's loads of them anyway, and I also obviously have to like the song, but that song makes me feel great every time I hear it.
Yeah, me too.
Can't not feel good about listening to that song. So I'm number 2. Again, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go with The Working Hour by Tears for Fears.
Oh, mate.
Arguably, you probably would have thought I would have put it at number 1, but I've listened to the 2 that I've chosen, and this is just been pipped. But The Working Hour is an absolutely fantastic song,
mate.
And it's the only song I could find actually that starts with a saxophone and ends with a saxophone. Because if you think about it, it does.
That saxophone with they slap that big reverb on it. It sounds glorious. Mate, I actually, I wanted to talk to you about that because I think we need to save that record, Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears, and we just need to dedicate like a whole episode talking about that, you and me, because over the year, that means a lot to me, that album, because not only is it magnificent and gloriously produced and all the songs are fantastic, that is the album that basically sparked off your and my friendship, I think, because that was the conversation that when I originally met you on the touring circuit and I was talking about Tears for Fears and that record, and you overheard me, and that was it. We've been thick as thieves ever since because of that passion for that record.
Which is awesome.
It's an amazing record. And funnily enough, talking about the working hour, I think that probably is. I'm obsessed with Everybody Wants to Rule the World, because if I could pick one song that represented my childhood that takes me back, it would be that. But I do think the working hour is superior, that song. And I actually had a moment last summer. I had an 80s playlist on. I was driving down, it's the road that you drive into Brighton and you go across Peacehaven and Saltdean and it goes along.
Oh, the A259.
Mate.
Lovely.
And you're up along the cliffs and you can look out to the sea and all the white horses are crashing in. It was a beautiful blue day, but it was quite windy. So the sea was really rough. And then the working hour came on. And I know word of a lie.
Perfect.
I had a moment, mate. What a
cherry on the top of that day.
Yeah. I got goosebumps. I got the feels. I had a little tear roll down my cheek. That song. There's something about that song on that album. I am moved by that album. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a fantastic album. The only one I don't like is Everybody Wants to Rule the World, because I think I've heard that more times than I heard everything else on it, because that used to be on MTV all the bloody time when that came out, didn't it? Do you remember?
I do know what you mean.
There's a video of him driving a little sports car down a really long road in America that was pretty much the video. And I remember seeing that literally when you see something that many times. But the rest of the album is equally, if not as good. And Everybody Wants to Rule the World was the last track that they wrote because, from what I know, is that the record label thought there were no hit singles on it. So they said, you need to go and write a hit single. And Roland went off and wrote Everybody Wants to Rule the World in his lunch break.
In about 5 minutes, yeah. I know what you mean. It has been overplayed over the years, but I do listen to that, but very, very infrequently for those reasons. But it is glorious, man.
And it's nostalgic, and it conjures up an image of that time as well, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
But what I like about that album is there's all the other songs on it are equally as good, if not better, than that song. And that song's really good. There's no duff tracks on Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Songs from the Big Chair.
Yeah, it's glorious.
There's only one crap thing about Songs from the Big Chair. We can go into that in another episode, and that's the meeting they must have had when they decided what was going to go on the front, because that must have been a right old time. Because they must have gone.
You've had this moan up about the cover of that album before.
Roland said, I've got this really nice jumper I want to wear. I reckon we should have a photograph of me in it.
I know what you mean. Aren't they just sitting there looking at the camera? It's grey, and they've got Roland's got a dobber. You've got to think about sweater. Don't you dare mention Frank Boff.
He's got a roll neck jumper on as well. What a prick. And he's got, and Kurt Smith's got a sort of satin roll neck thing on as well. And it's like, they couldn't think of anything better to stick on the album cover than a photo of there in a couple of jumpers. And well, I mean, we can talk. We use a photo of ourselves for our bloody podcast advert.
Is that when Kurt had a dobber rat tail at the back as well?
Yeah, but I think he tucked it out. I think he tucked it out of sight, hadn't he?
So he wouldn't get chinned down at his local for having a rat's tail. He probably tucked it under his leather jacket, didn't he? What can you say about that record? I still think we should dedicate more time to that album because it's an all-time classic.
Let's shut up about it then. I'll go on to number one so we can come off it and we can do it another time.
How can you top the working hour though?
Well, see, I've listened to the songs, and the working hour is great, but I think for me, I had a few on my list that didn't make it. Here's a couple that didn't make, that are bubbling under, as they say. Man Eater by Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
Your Latest Trick by Dire Straits, which is very, very saxophone heavy, but
glorious.
It don't half meander on, and it is an earworm. And then Careless Whisper again. That's good as well, but I think my number one song with saxophone is going to have to be True by Spandau Ballet.
Oh, mate, yeah, all right, yeah, good shout. Fair play.
And when you listen to that song and listen to how well it's written, I thought, well, I'm going to have to, because apparently Gary Kemp was, I didn't know this, but he was dating Claire Grogan. Remember her from Altered Images? Remember her?
No, I don't. No.
They had a song called, they did Happy Birthday, Happy
remember that.
Birthday. Remember that, right? So
Yeah,
she
yeah.
was the singer of that. She did loads of presenting and stuff. She's Scottish. He was dating her. She got him into Blue Eyed Soul. And True was the first Spandau Ballet album where Steve Norman, who up until, you remember, he was the actual saxophone player in Spandau Ballet. So they had sax in quite a lot of their songs. If you listen to most of their stuff up to True, the sax wasn't prominent because he wasn't playing it as well as he learnt to play it for True. They wanted to recreate White Boy Soul, but with an English twist, because Claire Grogan got Gary Kemp into it. So that's why True, the album, is all covered in saxophone. And True, the song itself, it's just, mate, when you hear that sax playing in that song, the way it's written and the line of it, it's just absolutely amazing.
Well, mate, you know I'm a huge Spandau fan. And I'm actually, not only am I a Spandau fan, I'm a huge fan of Gary Kemp, because he's just a fantastic musician. He's a great songwriter. He wrote all of their songs.
He wrote all of them.
All of them.
Everyone.
Yeah, he did.
He played all the instruments and he sang all the singing and he did everything. And the others were all just cardboard facades in front of him.
You know what I mean.
You're right. He's a very talented man.
He really is.
And True is a fantastically written song. And apparently he wrote it in about half an hour. I mean, that's outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah, and he plays guitar and piano on it. I mean, God's sake.
And it's a great tune, really is. Really good tune. So I'm going with that. So there you go.
Well, so that's amazing. I don't know what's... I don't know, though. I can't believe you've put that before the Work It Out. But I sort of understand why, because the saxophone is more prominent. The Work It Out, the saxophone is an accompaniment. But for True, the saxophone, again, is a vital component of that song. It creates the melody, doesn't it?
I just think... I've listened to them all in a line, and I think True... Baker Street is my ultimate favourite. But obviously, we're staying in the 80s.
When was that, then, Baker Street?
78.
Oh.
So the thing about people, I would say though, people that don't know anything Jerry Rafferty other than Baker Street, go and get a Jerry Rafferty best of. That man wrote some fantastic music, and Baker Street is a really good start for an air guitar career, because the guitar solo in Baker Street has hardly any notes in it, and it's very, very sort of angry sounding, and it's really good for air guitaring.
So if you're an amateur air guitarist, you could probably just about blaff it, right?
Start with Baker Street, and it makes you feel good playing it, because you can. It's a fantastic tune.
So start off with Baker Street, and once you've got your 10th Dan black belt in air guitar, and you can then try and tackle what I ended up doing, which was Stevie Salas's Harder They Come.
Oh Jesus, yeah, that's a different level. That's from a seasoned professional air guitarist. That is.
There you go.
I mean, you'd rehearsed that. There's no way that was a second attempt.
Well, I did rehearse it, didn't I, for about 30 years before I ended up knocking it out in front of you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going with True. Yeah. So there you go.
So brilliant. I'm very chuffed with those choices, but we are going to have to change the format of Roger the Horace's Absolute 80s Bangers on this episode, because I have, in fact, I hope you don't mind, I have brought forward 3 of my own choices to this collection, because as we both know, I am obsessed with the 80s. I consider myself a metalhead, metal till death, but I'm also an 80s fan till death. I'm obsessed with 80s. And part of my choice involves a shout out to somebody, because I don't know if you remember a few episodes ago, but our mutual friend Brendan McNally wrote us a really nice message, didn't he? Which was a couple of paragraphs. He wrote in with an email.
If he listens, hello, Brendan. I haven't seen him for about 22 years.
Sure thing. He came round my house before Christmas. I spent an evening with him and Tom Valentine, Diamond Cottage, and I had a jolly nice time catching up with him. But he did request a certain band from the 80s, which I'm now going to talk about. So shout out to you, Brendan, and I hope you're listening. So my songs that I've chosen are just 80s bangers, so they don't necessarily have saxophone in them.
Oh, this is cool. Go on. I'm excited. Yeah, come on, let's have it.
Right, so the first song I'm going for is, and these are, I don't know, are these my top 3? I don't think they're my top 3 80s songs, but when we were talking about 80s, these ones sprung to mind, because I love the songs and the whole albums of these albums, and I know you love them too.
Oh.
So my first song is Scoundrel Days by a-ha.
Oh, golly, yeah. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Yeah, the best opening to any a-ha album, without a doubt.
Well, interestingly, right, I have a second choice, which is The Swing of Things by a-ha, which is the second song on Scoundrel Days.
Right.
Because I've got a whitter about this. For starters, right, the production on this album is unbelievable. It was done by Alan Tarney, bit of a ledge, and I find this album fascinating because it was quite a departure from their debut, Hunting High and Low, but for the better, I think. It moved away from that Euro pop vibes of sort of Take On Me and all the drum machines, and they went for a more organic feel with this record, which I think, well, I know, actually alienated some of their fan base back in the day who were expecting Hunting High and Low Part 2.
Yeah.
But they did have some hits from the album. They had I've Been Losing You, Cry Wolf, and Manhattan Skyline. But this album, essentially, it actually kind of bombed. It went under the radar a bit, and it wasn't a smash for them, which I think, in hindsight, is a travesty because it's way and above their best ever work. It's an amazing record. There's loads more guitar. There's, mate, the fantastic live drums by a session guy called Michael Sturgis. He made a huge contribution to this record, and his drumming on that album is amazing. Paul Wachter is a-ha's chief songwriter, but it was actually the keyboardist, Mags, who wrote Scoundrel Days, and Paul Wachter wrote The Swing of Things. But, mate, the synths, the strings, Wachter's guitar, Mags's piano, and to top it all off, you've got Morten Harkett's unbelievable voice. It's just immaculate, man.
Yeah.
I could whitter on about this for ages, but
I know.
it's such a great record. This opens as Scoundrel Days, The Swing of Things, which, like you just rightly said, I can't split those two songs up. So I'm going to pick both of them because I think The Scoundrel Days and The Swing of Things are probably the best two opening tracks of any album in the 80s and possibly any pop album ever.
Right.
And then you get I've Been Losing You, which is an excellent groove and which features an excellent saxophone groove right at the end as it's fading out. I don't know if you remember that. Then you get October, which is a sweet Euro ponderer. Manhattan Skyline, absolute banger. Cry Wolf, genuine pop banger. We're Looking for the Whales, quirky up-tempo pop banger. The Weight of the Wind, which is simply sublime.
Should be my anthem, that.
100%. Mate. And right at the end, you've got The Soft Rains of April, which is an epic pop rock ballad, which I absolutely love. What a record. And when we talk about music that gives you the feels, right, I well up when I listen to this album. I think it would probably make it into my top 10 albums of all time, actually, not just 80s. And personally, like we say, I don't think you could find a stronger opening two tracks from any album. And I think you could argue that those two tracks may well be a-ha's two best songs. They're incredible. The drive, the melody, the intensity, the arrangement, the production, and, mate, one of the best voices in pop, Morten, who I think outdoes himself on those two songs. His vocals are amazing on those first two tracks, and they're really powerful. But interesting, if you watch that a-ha documentary, that album was really fraught and littered with tons of problems. The band weren't getting along. They pretty much hated each other. And it took a long time to make, apparently, as they had different ideas about where they were heading. But great art from suffering, I guess. I think it's genius. Now, as you know, being that I'm an audio engineer, I'm also a self-confessed audio snob. I use Tidal. I've not been paid to say that, which on a certain subscription option features something called Tidal Masters. It's awesome, whereby you can actually stream lossless audio files of the masters of the record in 24-bit, 192 kilohertz. Now, let me tell you, Roger the Horace, if you have a nice stereo like my Cambridge System,
I've seen it.
Listening to a Tidal master of albums as good as Scoundrel Days of an evening, mate, bastardizingly loud, let me tell you, that is a good night in, my friend.
I'll have to do that. I've got Scoundrel Days on vinyl.
Yeah.
An original pressing of it. I think I've got two pressings of it, an original one and a remastered one. And the original one is, obviously there's this whole loudness thing and everything else on it. The original one's very quiet, but you can crank it up and it doesn't lose any resonance. With a lot of these remastered things these days, obviously you know, there's some people just do it for the sake of it and make it so that it does sound louder, but ultimately when you turn it up, you lose it. But the first press of it on vinyl is absolutely fantastic when you play it, but it is ever so quiet and more quiet than other records that I have.
You've opened a can of worms here. because that really annoys me when they do that. Like you say, the loudness wars. So back in when that album came out, that probably came out at kind of like -12, -14 lufs, right? And a remark, which is quite quiet. But by doing that, you retain all the dynamics of that record.
Yeah.
You know, the range between the quietest and the loudest part of the song.
Yeah.
And you play that on vinyl and you turn it up, it's an amazing audio experience.
Yeah, it totally is.
But remasters annoy me because they just put it through a limiter, they crank it up to like -7 lufs, and it's too squashed and you lose all the dynamics, and it's not what that album was supposed to sound like. So I totally agree with you.
I have got a few albums where they've done that and it's worked, and a few albums where they've done it and it hasn't. I've got ones that I really like. Anyway, Scoundrel Days, I'll give you that. You know, everyone in Norway's favourite song is Manhattan Skyline. All the metal bands, all the metal musicians I've met from Norway, if you ask them what their favourite song is, it's Manhattan Skyline.
Wow.
Ishan, the chap from Emperor, he's done a cover of Manhattan Skyline on one of his last EPs. It's really good, and that's his favourite song of all time. Anyone in Norway, if you start talking about Manhattan Skyline, it's almost like worshipped as a tune over there.
It is a great tune, but I don't think it's as strong as the two openers.
No, it's a great record, mate. I'll give you that. Cry Wolf, though. Cry Wolf, time to worry. Brilliant. It's a great album. It's an amazing album.
Moving on to choice number 3.
Was that what Brendan McManaman McMalley wanted you to talk about? Aha. I didn't think he liked Aha.
Yeah, he asked for more Soundgarden and Aha.
Oh, Soundgarden, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Soundgarden are yet to come because they're one of my favourite bands ever, but I have provided Aha Wittering. So, on to choice 3. I think you might like this choice, Rob.
Go on.
Right, this album means a lot to me, but the track I've gone with is White Heat by Madonna from the True Blue record.
Oh, Christ, yeah. Oh, God, I didn't know you were going there. I thought you were going to do Soundgarden. Right, White Heat, yeah, of course. Yeah, great tune. Yeah.
Amazing Patrick Leonard production. Now, this is interesting, this song, because most of the drumming duties on that album were done by Steve Bray, who's a great session player. But the guy that played on White Heat is a guy called Jonathan Sugarfoot Moffat on drums. He's an absolute god. He's awesome. And he was Michael Jackson's live drummer.
Of course he was, with a name like Sugarfoot.
Well, there's a reason he's called Sugarfoot. He uses he used the same kick drum technique that I used to when I used to play a lot, which is the heel-toe swivel technique. And he's got a really fast right foot with one beater, and he's a bit of a ledge. That's why he's called Sugarfoot.
Amazing.
It's brilliant, and his drumming on that is obsessed. But this is really cool, this, because the guy that did most of the session bass work on True Blue is a guy called Guy Pratt. Now, Guy Pratt is kind of an unsung hero of mine because he's probably played on the majority of 80s pop hits that you've ever heard. But, you know, he played tons of stuff, but because he's a session player and out of the limelight, hardly anyone's heard of him. And during COVID lockdown, Guy Pratt started up his own YouTube channel where he played along to some of the pop hit songs that he sessioned on back in the days.
Right.
And he included some of Madonna's songs, Papa Don't Preach being one of them, which he also plays bass on. Now, I often pondered how they achieved that incredible bass tone for that True Blue record. And I learnt how they achieved that because Guy discusses it on his channel.
Wow.
And essentially, that bass sound is Guy's bass tone, but with a synth layered over it, playing along. And by the sounds of it, a stonking amount of compression, which is awesome. But I think the synth they're using is something like a Korg Poly 6, because you know I'm well into my synths, and it certainly sounds like one. And I've often wondered over the years how I achieved that amazing bass tone on that record, and that's how they did it. And interestingly, Guy Pratt nowadays plays in the drummer of Pink Floyd, Nick Mason. He plays in Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets with none other than, aforementioned on the pod, Gary Kemp on lead vocals and guitar, the chief songwriter from Spandau Ballet. And I wouldn't mind going to see that because they're all top-class musicians and they'd probably be absolutely obsessed.
It probably would, yeah. I would quite... Well, there we are then. That's a pod outing going to happen.
There you go. But also on this album, you've got the late David Williams on guitar on this song, who was also Michael Jackson's live guitarist for years. But this is an amazing fact that I found out. Dan Huff also plays guitar on this record. You must know Dan Huff. He was in a band called Giant in the 80s who were awesome. Last of the Runaways from 1989 is a fantastic hard rock record, and Dan Huff was the main man on guitar.
Who's that by? Giant?
Giant, yeah.
I must check that out.
Now, you will love this fact, Horace. I've done a lot of research of this album.
I should say you have.
I was absolutely amazed when I saw this on the credits for White Heat. Now, check this out. None other on backing vocals is a certain Mr. Richard Marx, mate.
Oh, is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he's only credited, weirdly, for that one song.
Wow.
No, none of the other songs. And I'm curious about that. It's like maybe after his takes, they were like, well, it's not really what we're looking for, mate. See you later. just come back next week. And he came back and they've already been done by somebody else. But yeah, he's on it.
So that would have been about 1986 or, hang on, five. I think it was 5.
1985. Yep.
Yeah. I'm wondering what Marx was doing around that time with himself, because he may well have...
Well, he sneaked off, with his tail between his legs and wrote Right Here Waiting and then became a millionaire with a fluffy creme de moulay, so we don't care.
That's what I reckon. He only lasted for one song.
Yeah.
So he probably said, I don't need you. I'll go and I've got a better song. And he went off and did it. And they never put White Heat out, did they? Never came out as a single, as far as I remember.
What, Right Here Waiting?
No, White Heat.
Oh, sorry, White Heat. No, she didn't release that as a single, no. But essentially, it's really cool. It's lyrically about a song about girl power and standing up to men in relationships, which I think is very cool, considering I'm a staunch feminist. And obviously, it features a sample from the movie White Heat from 1949 featuring Jimmy Cagney.
That's him. How do you like that, boys?
Yeah.
A copper. That one, yeah.
So if I could pick a sound that represents 80s pop music, it would be that record. That glorious, ultra-compressed synth bass, those disco pop song melodies, big drums, gorgeous, clean electric guitars and all those synths. It's just brilliant, mate.
You know what I remember about True Blue? I remember when my friend Gavin got it on cassette. And I didn't have True Blue. I had the first 2.
Did you smash him and nick his cassette?
No. We used to sit in his room looking at it. Because the photo of her on the front with her head back, isn't it, up the wall with her leather jacket on? And we just used to sit in there looking at the photo of Madonna on the front of that tape. We used to love it. And I think that lends itself to why you knew albums inside out then, because you used to look at, not everyone probably did, but we just used to sit and look at the boxes sometimes.
Yeah. And read all the inlays and that.
And read all the inlays. Like you just said, I didn't know any of that. You just said, read all the inlays, look at the words, learn all the words, look at the picture of her, put it away, then get it out a couple of days later and have a look at it again, and then do the same for the next 2 weeks.
When you're not sore, have another go.
I was only 12 when that bloody album came out, for crying out loud.
Ah, crap. Sorry, Horace. I better get that, mate. Hello.
I've got a few bits and pieces for you, man.
It's Bobby D. Bobby Dazzler, I'm just recording the pod with Horace. I'll call you back in a bit, all right?
You like that, is it?
Oh!
He's in a strop. He's hung up. I'll call him back in a minute. Horace, I've got to say, I've got an app. What are you laughing at?
I don't know. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's good. Laughter's good for the soul. So if you don't even know what you're laughing about, who cares?
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Don't worry about it. I'm still laughing about the fact that if you go and apeshit with your top off on stage with a fucking bassoon, that's what I'm laughing at. I can't get the image out of my head. It's hilarious. Anyway.
Me sitting up there. It used to. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on.
I'd rather just sit here and talk about you playing the bassoon all afternoon.
I didn't ever get a tune out of it properly, so I haven't got any sort of more backstory. Yeah, that's kind of it. At least trombones are funny, aren't they? When someone plays them.
Anyway, Horace, where was I? Yes, I've got some news that you might like.
The Richard Marx News at 10.
So, Horace, I was quite keen to provide some more Richard Marx News at 10 news in this episode because I was innocently scrolling on Instagram the other day, which I don't do very often, and I came across a really funny post by Richard Marx that I thought you might appreciate. And he's talking and referring to the first single from Repeat Offender, which is Satisfied. and he was talking about the Satisfied video that he made for the single.
Oh, yeah.
And his story goes, oh, yeah, the one in London, yeah, all right. And the story goes something like this. He said, he shot the video in a random...
Shot him? All right.
We shot the video in an alley in downtown LA, and it was a really chilly, humid evening. And he said, people were always accusing me of using product in my hair. But he said, I never used hairspray. I never permed my hair. I was basically just born with this really fluffy mullet, he said. And he said all he could do was brush it. That's all he did. But he said as the evening went on, as he was shooting this video, which took a few hours, he said it got quite humid and more cool as the evening went on. And he said his hair basically just got fluffier and fluffier. And then he finished the video, and when he saw the rushes of the footage, he was like, oh, my God, holy shit, look at the state of that fluffy mullet. But he said it was too late and there was nothing I could do. And I couldn't wait to share that with you because we've been taking the piss out of his creme 80s moulet for all these decades, thinking he was like mega proud of it. And little did we know, he's like ultra embarrassed of his mullet, and that's just what he was born with, and he couldn't do anything about it, the poor soul.
Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to have to go and watch it now because I can't remember which video that is. Is that the one where he's in a... Well, obviously you said he's in an alley, but I mean, I don't remember there being... I'll have to go and have another look at it.
I haven't actually looked at it since he mentioned it, but I thought I wanted to share it with you first on the pod, and then I suggest that we both go and look at it on our own time this evening and check out the fluffiness of the creme de moulin.
I shall rush straight away and watch it now.
I might just download it to my VLC media player and watch the entire video in slow motion so I can see the coiffured movement of a mullet as he's moving around.
He's got hair like a bag of quavers or something like that. Yeah, it's horrendous. I'm going to go and watch. I'm going to go and watch it. Yeah, 100%. So my turn to ask you, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, thanks, mate. Yeah, 2025's been quite kind to me, really. I know a lot of people get January blues this time of year, but I haven't, I'm pleased to report. Everything's pretty rosy, to be fair. We've had some people message in, which I need to report at some point, but I need to make a correction from the last episode. You know, we're talking about Giles Dillnot.
Yes.
And how why I keep calling people Dillnots. I need to just mention a job correction. I said on the last episode that he was a political advisor to the BBC. He's actually now the Director of Communications and External Affairs for the Office of the Children's Commissioner for England. That's a job title, isn't it? He used to be some sort of political advisor, but he's not anymore.
Must be an acronym for that, I would imagine.
Yeah. But one of the other reasons I'm in a really good mood is because I came across a Les Dawson clip, another one on YouTube, from the Royal Variety Performance from 1987, during which he said the following. I lost my cat. I hadn't seen it for a few days, and then I saw it again. I thought it only had one eye until I realised it was walking backwards. What a fucking lemon. It's not necessarily what he says, it's his delivery and the way he says it. He's hilarious. And after he did that, he did that gurning thing like he's really cheesed off, you know what I mean? Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
So on Tuesday, there was so much ice on my car outside our house here. My cat was using my scraper to scrape the ice off her car. So I had to scrape the ice off mine with a discount card I had in my wallet. But it only got 10% off.
You lemon. So, gig report, Horace. We went to a gig together, didn't we? We went to
a concert at the same time with the same people and in the same venue. Yes, you're quite right.
It was brilliant. We went to see Helmet, didn't we? At the Electric Ballroom in Camden. It was their 30th anniversary of the Betty record, their third album.
That's right.
And
one of the most disgusting sounding snare drums of all time.
Yeah, but it's amazing though, isn't it? The legendary Bobby Dazzler sorted us all out with VIP passes, man.
He did, very kindly.
Tom Valentine, Diamond Cottage came along. Shitlegs came along, the old bassist from Landmine Spring, and our mutual friend, the lovely Catcher. And it was a top night, wasn't it, mate?
It was a top night.
Yeah. I was really impressed with them as well. I know the only original member left is Page Hamilton, the frontman and guitarist. But he's 64 years old and he's still giving it the big one. And they were superb live, weren't they?
Very tight. Yeah. And interestingly, did they play Betty in the... They played Betty in the right order, didn't they?
They did. They played the whole Betty album in the right order. Then they had that little 15-minute
Even
interval.
the crap song at the end that no one likes, they played that, didn't they?
I like all of them.
I know, but
We're just
I
a
don't.
miserable shit. And then
Yep,
they
that's right.
they had a 15-minute interval and they came back out and then they played a smattering of top smash helmet hits, didn't they? It was awesome.
Yep.
And we had a thanks to Bobby Dazzler and the VIPs, we had a bird's eye view up on the balcony, right looking over the stage, didn't we? It was brilliant.
That's right, with our own personal washroom.
We did, yeah. That was a right bonus.
Yeah. And that woman was in it for about an hour.
Right, so Horace, I should probably mention somebody else messaged in.
Oh, yeah.
A certain Ollie Mitchell, the old singer from Johnny Truant. He messaged me a couple of weeks ago after season 2, episode 1 of the pod came out because he was laughing his head off at the story that I retold that he was involved in, the Manhoon Mondon story. And when he texted me on WhatsApp, the way he spelt Manhoon Mondon was just superb, and I wish I could regale it on the pod. It was awesome. But anyway, he said to me, "That's hilarious. I've got a really funny touring story I've just remembered if you want to share it on the pod." So this is what I'm going to, and I hope he's listening, and this is what he said. He said, back in the Johnny Truant days, we were on tour and we played a venue called the Harlequin, which had a leisure centre vibe. Do you remember the Harlequin? He didn't say where it was. This is in the UK.
No, I don't remember the Harlequin.
Oh, I don't know where it was because he didn't say. Anyway, he says, the Harlequin had those foam square tiles on the ceiling, the ones that if you tap them, you can move them slightly. I know what he means, those ceiling tiles.
Yeah.
And he said, they did a gig with a band called Phony, F-O-N-Y. And I've never heard of them. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I've heard of Phony. They were on Casket. They're on Casket or Copro, one of Jose's bands.
I'd never heard of this Phony. I've never come across them before. But Ollie said they did a tour with them. And he said it was back in the days when Jägermeister was sponsoring all the metal bands. And they had a case of Jaeger. And they got on the Jaegers. And Ollie said, for some reason, him and the drummer, Paul Jackson, who we've mentioned on the pod before, they just took an instant dislike to this Phony band, and they had a real cob on about them. And they got on the Jaegers and got levered. And he said, we decided on a cunning plan. And I'm regaling this story verbatim from what he said in his message. He said, me and Paul found a quiche on the rider, sneaked into Phony's dressing room, which they were sharing, by the way, with Funeral for a Friend back in the day. Yeah. We got on the table, reached up, lifted up one of those foam tiles and slid a full quiche underneath the tile. Not a slice, a full whole quiche. Now, he explained that the cunning plan was they were going to put it at an angle so that maybe when the band came in, they're all there and someone slammed the door or something, the quiche would fall down and splat on all over him. But he said he never saw the aftermath of what happened with the quiche, with the quiche plan, right? But it gets better. He said they always went down really well, apparently, Johnny Truant at the Harlequin, this venue. And he said about a year later, after they played there, he said he asked their booking agent, Ross, at the agency group who booked them, why they'd never got asked to come back and play a gig at the Harlequin, because they went down really well there. Oh, sorry, it says in my notes here it's in Red Hill. Red Hill Harlequin, that's what it says.
Okay, yeah, I know Red Hill, yeah.
So he was bemused why they hadn't been invited back. And Ross said, you never got another offer because someone saw you putting a quiche in the ceiling. And that's why they never got invited back. What a lemon. I thought that was amazing.
Someone saw you putting a quiche in the ceiling. Amazing.
Yeah. Quiche Gate. Brilliant.
Quiche Gate. Johnny Quiche. the repercussions of a badly positioned quiche, surely.
Now, Horace, talking of touring stories, I know in the last episode, my mate Dan asked us to give us, to provide dear listener with our favourite touring stories. But I do believe we didn't have time for one on the last episode. And I know you were interested in sharing it. And I can't wait to hear it. So over to you.
I'm not about arguably interested in sharing it, but it was my most misfortunate moment involving my van.
No, I don't know this story, so I'm all ears, mate.
Well, I had for those that don't already know, when the band finished, I went off and did some other things, and then I got a van and had it kitted out, and then went off doing touring. So
when you say doing touring, you bands would hire you to drive them around while they were on tour, weren't you?
They would hire me, that's right, and I would go off on tour with them in my van, and then I would end up usually working for them on the tour, doing something of worth, selling things or doing lights. I used to really like doing lights. I was quite good at that. So I did that, and then So anyway, I had my own van, my Sprinter van with seats in the back and whatnot. And I had the bulkhead removed, which is the bit behind the driver, the metal wall in the middle. So I had that taken out so that you could get from the cab to the back without having to go round the sides.
Okay.
So one Christmas, I remember I was living in Tunbridge Wells and I'd driven down to see my mum. And we lived above a florist's. And I took my mum a big bunch of flowers down for Christmas. The lady in the florist had given me a plastic bucket to keep the flowers in.
Right.
To take down to my mum, right? So I went all the way down to see my mum and dad for Christmas. And then for Boxing Day, I was driving back up the country to go and visit a friend for a Boxing Day ham. Because that was what I did on Boxing Day. And he knows who he is. I'm going to do a ham. Anyway, he did a ham. Anyway, I'm driving up the A23 and M23 up Brighton to see this, to go and have a nice feast on this ham. And you have to bear in mind that the day before that, I'd had an enormous Christmas dinner. So I'm on the M23 and I'm going north and I start slowing down and it starts slowing down and it slows down to a complete stop. So we're in this traffic jam and, I'm sitting in my van and I'm nowhere near an exit. I'm between exits. There's absolutely nowhere I can go. And I got the red mist. My Christmas dinner was about to make a hasty retreat from my person. So I put up with it as long as I could. And then I realised that if I didn't do something about it, I was going to end up soiling myself in this traffic jam.
And then we would be calling you shitlegs.
That's right. Well, shit everything. So I had no choice. This is back in the day before somebody decided to get rid of the hard shoulder. So I had to pull out of the traffic jam, which I only just about managed to do, pull onto the hard shoulder, then have an emergency look round in the van. I've got a roll of blue paper and I've got carrier bags. And luckily, I've got this bucket from the flower shop.
Mate.
The flower bucket, right? So I've got the flower bucket, right? So I'm thinking, well, it's got to be. It's either that or I'm going to have to sit in half a blinking pound and a half of hot crap all the way up to blinking. So I'm not going to do that. So I'll get into the back of the van. Luckily, it had tinted windows and a curtain on one side, so they couldn't see it. So picture this: I'm on the hard shoulder with my hazards flashing, just at the moment, only the hazards, and I've got the curtains all drawn in the van. You have to get your trousers and your pants right off if you're going to go into a bucket because you can't. You'll get it all over yourself. So you might as well just get everything off. So I got everything off. I'm squatting down over this bucket. I got a black bag into the bucket as well. So I'm all right. I'm all good. I've got a black bag. And I'm literally just let this go. And the stench in the van was absolutely unbearable. And then as soon as I let it go and I get to the position where there's a...
Oh, my God.
So picture this. I'm sat on this bucket. I can't get off because I'm past the point of no return. So I leaned across and just gingerly looked out the side of the curtain and there's two police officers standing there on the side of the van. So I had to shout out something along the lines of, okay, just give me a minute, I'll be 1 second, blah, blah, blah. And they kept knocking on the bloody van. And I was like, so I had to get cleaned up as best as I can, get my trousers back on. And I'll tell you what, I opened that van door, the sliding door into the front of them policemen, and both of them took about three steps backwards. When I opened that door, I think all the nasal hair got burned out of their nostrils when that happened.
Sorry, I can't quite regale to the listeners right now that I've had my head in my hands. That would be absolutely horrendous, and I cannot imagine the rich egg stench that must have hit them when you opened that door.
Yeah, well, it's pretty bad in the van, obviously. I had just literally crapped into a bag into a bucket.
An entire Christmas dinner.
Yeah, and they did me for it. They gave me a right old ticking off. I didn't get a ticket. They said the hard shoulder is only to be used for emergencies. Now,
Well, what do they expect you to fucking do?
vehicle emergencies, yes, but I consider that to be an emergency. So as far as it was emergency as far as I'm concerned. I only had one pair of trousers and pants, so there was no way I was going to get stuck with that. And then I had to drive off. I had to pull off the next junction and throw the whole lot, kit and caboodle, into a bin. So there you go. That was a low point.
So, Horace, for this episode's Roger the Horace's album review, I sent you Bill Murray's latest album, American Motorsports, an absolute banger of a pop rock album without a single weak song on the record, in my humble opinion. So, without further ado, it's now time for...
Roger the Horace's album review.
So all that's left to say, really, Horace, is what did you make of it?
Well, I quite like that.
Well, bugger me with a fish fork. You've been listening to Backstage Pass with myself, James Maverick, and Rob Newson, a.k.a. Roger the Horace. If you want to get in touch with us lemons or ask us a question to discuss on the show, please get in touch via Instagram by using our handle, which is @BSPpod, or by sending us a direct email to bsppod@protonmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by Maverick Audio and produced by me. If you'd like your podcast or any other production produced, then visit my website at www.maverickaudio.co.uk and message me via the contact form. Please leave us a review, share our Cretinous pod, and remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Until the next time.